Indirect case laws. Central excise from casebook. First case. Balrampur Chini Mills Limited versus Union of India 2014. We are dealing with central excise. Balrampur Chini Mills Limited versus Union of India Limited 2014. Whether Bagasi, which is a marketable product but not a manufactured product, can be subjected to excise duty. Decision. The High Court concluded that though bagasse is an agricultural waste of sugarcane, it is a marketable product. However, duty cannot be imposed thereon simply by virtue of the explanation added under Section 2D of the Central Excise Act 1944, as it does not involve any manufacturing activity. The High Court quashed the CVEX circular dated 28/10/2009. Next case. CCE versus Osnar Chemical Private Limited. Whether the addition and mixing of polymers and additives to base bitumen with a view to improve its quality amounts to manufacture. Decision. The Supreme Court held that since the said process merely resulted in the improvement of quality of bitumen and no distinct commodity emerged, and the process carried out by the SSE had nowhere been specified in the section notes or chapter notes of the first schedule. The process of mixing polymers and additives with bitumen did not amount to manufacture. Grasim Industries Limited versus Union of India. Whether the process of generation of metal scrap or waste during the repair of worn out machineries part of cement manufacturing plant amounts to manufacture. The Supreme Court held that the generation of metal scrap or waste during the repair of the worn out machineries part of cement manufacturing plant did not amount to manufacture. Medley Pharmaceuticals Limited versus CCE. Are the physician samples excisable goods in view of the fact that they are statutorily prohibited from being sold? The court inferred that merely because a product was statutorily prohibited from being sold would not mean that product was capable of being sold. Since physician sample was capable of being sold in open market, the physician samples were excisable goods and were liable to excise duty. Next case. USA Rectifier Corporation Limited. Whether assembling of testing equipments for testing the final product in the factory amounts to manufacture. The Supreme Court observed that once the appellant had themselves made admission regarding the development of testing equipment in their own balance sheet, which was further substantiated in the director's report, it could not make any contrary submissions later on. Moreover, SSCs stand that testing equipments were developed in the factory to avoid importing of such equipments with a new view to save foreign exchange confirmed that such equipments were sellable and marketable. Hence, the apex court held that duty was payable on such testing equipments. Nicholas Piramal India Limited versus CCE. Can a product with short shelf life be marketable? The Supreme Court ruled that short shelf life should not be equated with no shelf life and would not ipso facto mean that it could not be marketed. A shelf life of 2 to 3 days was sufficiently long enough for a product to be commercially marketable. Shelf life of a product would not be a relevant factor to test the marketability of a product unless it was shown that the product had absolutely no shelf life or the shelf life of the product was such that it was not capable of being bought or sold during the shelf life. CCE versus Solid Current Engineering Works and ORS. Whether the machine which is not assimilated in permanent structure could be considered to be movable as to be dutiable under the Central Excise Act. The court observed that, as per the assessee, the machine was fixed by nuts and bolts to a foundation not because the intention was to permanently attach to the earth, but because the foundation was necessary to provide a wobble-free operation to the machine. It opined that an attachment without necessary intent of making the same permanent cannot constitute permanent fixing, embedding, or attachment, in the sense that would make the machine a part and parcel of earth permanently. Hence, the Supreme Court held that the plants in question were not immovable property, so as to be immune from the levy of excise duty. Consequently, duty would be levied on them. CCE versus Tarpaulin International 2010. Does the process of preparation of tarpaulin made ups after cutting and stitching the tarpaulin fabric and fixing the eyelets amount to manufacture? The apex court opined that stitching of tarpaulin sheets and making eyelets did not change basic characteristics of the raw material and end product. The process did not bring into existence a new and distinct product with total transformation in the original commodity. The original material used, that is, the tarpaulin, was still called tarpaulin made-ups even after undergoing the said process. Hence, it would not be said that the process was a manufacturing process. Therefore, there could be no levy of central excise duty of the tarpaulin made-ups. CCE versus GTC Industries Limited. Does the process of cutting and embossing aluminum foil for making the cigarettes amount to manufacture? The High Court pronounced that cutting and embossing did not transform aluminum foil into a distinct and identifiable commodity. It did not change the nature and substance of foil. The said process did not render any marketable value to the foil, but only made it usable for packing. There were no records to suggest that the cut to shape embossed aluminum foils used for packing cigarettes were distinct marketable commodity. Hence, the High Court held that the process did not amount to manufacture as per Section 2F of the Central Excise Act 1944. Only the process which produces distinct and identifiable commodity with marketable value can be called manufacture. CCE versus Sony Music Entertainment Private Limited. Does the activity of packing of imported compact discs in jewel box along with inlay card amount to manufacture? The High Court observed that none of the activity that the assessee undertook involved any process on the compact disc that were imported. It was held that the tribunal rightly concluded that the activities carried out by the respondent did not amount to manufacture, since the compact disc had been completed and finished when imported by the SSC. They had been imported in finished and completed form. CCE versus Science Laboratories. How will a cream which is available across the counters or also on prescription of dermatologists for treating skin conditions be classified if it has subsidiary pharmaceutical contents as medicaments or as cosmetics? The Supreme Court held that owing to the pharmaceutical constituents present in the cream, moisturizer, and its use for the cure of certain skin diseases, the same would be classifiable as a medicament under heading 30.03. Commissioner of Central Excise, Bhopal versus Minwool Rock Fibers Limited. Whether a heading classifying goods according to their composition is preferred over a specific heading. The Supreme Court held that there was a specific entry which speaks of slag wool and rock wool under subheading 6803, chargeable at 18%. But there was yet another entry which was consciously introduced by the legislature under subheading 6807, 10 chargeable at 8%, which speaks of goods in which rock wool, slag wool, and products thereof were manufactured by use of more than 25% by weight of blast furnace slag. It was not in dispute that the goods in question were those goods in which more than 25% by weight of one or more of red mud, press mud, or blast furnace slag was used. If that be the case, then in classification dispute, an entry which was beneficial to the SSE was required to be applied. Further, tariff heading specifying goods according to its composition should be preferred over the specific heading. Subheading 6807.10 was specific to goods in which more than 25% by weight red mud, press mud, or blast furnace slag was used, as it was based entirely on material used for composition of goods. Therefore, the court opined that the goods in issue were appropriately classifiable under subheading 6807.10 of the tariff. CCE versus Wockhardt Life Sciences Limited. Whether antiseptic cleansing solution used for cleaning, degerming, or scrubbing the skin in the patient before the operation can be classified as a medicament. The Supreme Court observed that the factors to be considered for the purpose of the classification of the goods are the composition, the product literature, the label, the character of the product, and the use to which the product is put to. In the instant case, it is not in dispute that the product is used by the surgeons for the purpose of cleaning or degerming the hands and scrubbing the surface of skin of the patient. The Apex Court therefore stated that the product is basically and primarily used for prophylactic purposes to prevent the infection or diseases, even though the same contains very less quantity of the prophylactic ingredient. The Apex Court held that the product in question can be safely classified as medicament, which would fall under chapter heading 3003, a specific entry, and not under chapter subheading 3402.90, a residual entry. CCE versus Connaught Plaza Restaurant Private Limited. Can the soft serve at McDonald's India be classified as ice cream for the purpose of levying excise duty? The Apex Court held that the soft serve was classifiable under heading 21.05 as ice cream and not under heading 0.4 0.4 as other dairy produce. CCE versus Super Synotex India Limited 2014 is the amount of sale tax VAT collected by the SSE and retained with him in accordance with any state sales tax incentive scheme includable in the assessable values for payment of excise duty. The apex court held that such retained amount has to be treated as the price of the goods under the basic fundamental conception of transaction value as submitted with effect from 1/7/2000, and therefore the SSE is bound to pay excise duty on the said sum.